begin?
Let's go.
Right, so let me introduce Katt, or Catherine, who is the wonderful creator and designer behind Heather and Hops, and a dear friend. So thank you so much for saying yes to this whole interview idea. I'm really excited. And yeah, first, I just wanted you to tell us a little bit about yourself and how are you today? You can start with that.
I'm good. I'm very happy. I don't really know when anyone asks about myself, I always get like overwhelmed. I'm like, you've only got a certain amount of time and we're multifaceted. But
Absolutely.
yeah, like knitting, food, yoga, Audrey, and
Hmm.
Scotland. Four or five words.
I love
That
it.
would
Perfect. I think that describes you well. That describes you well. Um, okay, so tell me, where are you right now? Like, where do you live geographically? What's the weather like? The landscape?
I am coming to you from Hertfordshire, which is in the United Kingdom, just up and to the left of London. And I'm really hoping you can't hear, which I've been saying on every podcast for the last 2 months, but there is building work going. So the landscape is a little bit towny and building sitey at the moment, but we do have some beautiful, beautiful parks around us. We've got a gorgeous nature reserve, which I spend a lot of time in, which has gone from being completely dehydrated and quite dry to storm-ridden and quite rainy.
Nice. Very nice. I love a good summer storm. I think that that's like so refreshing. So,
It, there's going to be a lot of Brits that are going to have calmed down with the complaining about melting.
yeah, because it was really hot this summer. I think you guys had like a serious heat wave.
For the UK, yeah, I think it's the hottest since the 60s.
Ooh,
The hottest,
summer 2020.
yeah.
Crazy one.
The
Uh,
whole of 2020 has been a little bit.
just a little bit out there. Okay, cool. And like living so close to London and like maybe your area, which has more nature, do you feel that that influences at all the way that you design or the way that you knit or anything in that way, or your fiber choices?
I think in a way it probably does more subconsciously than consciously.
Mm-hmm.
I have noticed that I tend to get more inspired when I am away, like
Mm.
the Galdana top, for example, and the Scottish shawl that I've been working on, which are very broad things, but usually you see something. I see a little bit more inspiration in something afar. That's not to say that I don't get it locally. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
I guess everyone has a little bit more headspace when they're out adventuring, so you kind of have got the ability to pull from it a little bit more. But maybe that's just me.
No, absolutely. Now that I think about it, your top, which was inspired by the island in Mallorca. Okay, yeah, very nice. I'm excited to cast that on. I've got I've got my yarn here waiting to be wound up, and I think that this weekend it'll happen.
It's
Uh,
such a cool feather. Really excited to see it.
I'm so excited. I think it's really cool. It's gonna bring me a lot of joy as I knit it. Um, okay, so now tell me a little bit about your fiber history. Like, how did you get into working with fiber? How long have you been doing this? What drew you to this world of crazy crafters?
I I have to say I knitted very briefly when I was very young, maybe 7 years old. My
Hmm.
grandma taught me how to make a scarf for my teddy bear.
Oh, okay.
Other than that, I hadn't picked it up again at all until it's just under 2 years ago now. And it came out of necessity as opposed to, like, I've always wanted to knit, and anyone that's known me for probably, I want to say half my life, so probably giving away my age, but from 15, I had like not an obsession, but I was always really drawn to what would be called ugly knitwear. So I always had a collection of just very gaudy jumpers, like autumn leaves all over them in other colors, and like roses with like crocheted lace around and like over the top. And I always wished that I could knit them myself. And if I saw a hand knit, and I don't really know how I understood before I knitted if it was a hand knit or not, but I've got a couple actually still that I can't get rid of, but I knew it was a hand knit, so I had to take it and cherish it. And so I always wanted to learn for that reason, but I picked it up, I guess, when I was at university, tried a square and I was like, it's impossible, I can't do it. Put it down. And then in a nutshell, I got very sick, and going from someone that teaches yoga and personal trains, and I was a support worker, to being in bed, I needed something that I could do from home without leaving the house. And you can get needles and yarn delivered to the door. You can sit and watch podcasters and YouTubers explaining how to do these things. So I just picked it up that way. And I couldn't be more grateful for it.
Right? Oh, I'm happy that you're in this knitting world and doing what you do. I think that in your future, maybe for like winter, you need to make one of those like crazy Christmas jumpers with all of that would be a cool design.
You might want to edit me rummaging to get it out, but I must get you this book.
Okay, go. I'm not going to edit. It's fine.
I know where it is. It's just under a couple of other books. Because I keep some of my knitting books in a drawer. That doesn't really make sense, but...
Wow. Yes.
This is a skirt.
Oh my God. I love that.
This is filled with some very much dream knits. This wildflower one, badgers and wildflowers, is particularly...
Oh my God. That is amazing.
So
love
this is
that,
the
like,
dream.
the shoulder badger.
Yeah, that's the badger one there in the back.
Oh my
but
gosh.
The bears, like, if I could, I need to spend a bit of time converting the yarns and saving some money to purchase enough yarn to do a project like this. But a couple of them have mohair in, which I'm sure we'll get to later. But this is the dream, but I wanted to improve my skills before picking one of these up.
All right. I love that. That's amazing because that would probably be Antarctica for a lot of it, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Which is kind of something that I would love to do.
Have you ever tried Antarctica?
I think for one project, I helped ThymeWeaver with a scarf, and I did think about doing an intarsia for it. But I'm not sure why we didn't opt for it. But so I have done a little bit. I did a bit on sort of a V-neck jumper that they released too. But aside from that, nothing like colour work or anything, just gentle colour work bits and contrast colour collars and things.
Yeah.
So nothing.
I feel like it's not as difficult as it seems. Like right now I'm doing it on the scarf that I'm making, and it's just two different colors, so you only change right here. But the change is really nothing too crazy. I feel like nothing in knitting is too crazy when you actually like break it down. You're like, I could do that.
I think that's, for me, that's something that I like to be a bit of an advocate for if I can. Like pearl stitch, it gets quite a bad rep in general. Not everyone, obviously, and not everyone gives things, and colour work being daunting and terrifying. Take it one step at a time, and and if you don't like one way, there's so many different ways of doing things that you will find a way that you like. And again, like everything, and no one wants to hear it, but just practice a bit. Like there's nothing stressful at all about it. Shouldn't be stressful about knitting, apart from maybe untangling
untangling and frogging and taking everything out, but
Frogging can be a relaxing and very satisfying process, I think. Even it's the same yarn, but I undid a lace shawl that was in black mohair.
ooh,
And I got myself a tea, I sat down. It's fine.
yeah.
Just don't stress and enjoy the process if you can, like as much as you can.
I think we just have to be willing to like put in the time and maybe like waste the time, which nothing is ever wasted because it's always a learning experience.
And
But
especially if you enjoy it, it's not wasted.
mhm.
And gifting yourself the time of enjoyment as opposed to the time of entanglement and stress.
Yeah, exactly. So, following along on that thread, what's your favorite project or what's the project that you're most proud of? Can you think of something that brings you a lot of joy and
You
pride?
know, I I find that really hard because they all projects have done for very different reasons, and some aren't that exciting to me, even though I've enjoyed the process. Say, you know, like a pair of socks that I've just finished, really nice to knit on, but you know, from my first project being a pair of colourwork mittens, I still think that that moment of creation and finishing
Yeah,
and the bravery to do so, which I didn't at the time realize was brave.
yeah.
But so it really isn't because it wasn't a step for me. I just did it because I thought it was fine to. Like that was quite a proud moment, I guess. And
Hmm.
then finishing after quite a bit of trauma, again, just through illness is fine.
Oh
Nothing.
yeah, absolutely.
I finished the Ramblin' Woman that I did for Monica, the lovely lady in Scotland that owns the farm that I talk about all the time.
Yes, 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 yes.
But I finished that, and it I I find color work really rhythmic and methodical,
Hmm.
but times when you have brain fog, it's kind of really hard to focus. So just doing sort of 10 stitches, putting it down, coming back 10 stitches, it took a lot longer than I anticipated. But to see that wrapped up in the little cloth bag and then gifted and had, like, it was a very proud moment because not only when I finished it was I at a point where I was able to go out into London,
Hmm.
sit and have a meal comfortably and healthily with someone. I had achieved from a struggle through to that point with this garment that was like 2,500 meters of knitting. Like,
Exactly. And how many stitches of love are in there, you know?
and it was my first steeped project too, which was really terrifying knowing that all of that, I think it
Could.
was months of knitting was getting cut. But yeah, I think that's probably up there.
Oh, I love
But
that. Do you have any pictures? I might ask you for a picture to put it in here after.
I try my best with Ravelry. I don't always put in everything, but I am trying to do better now. So I don't have a picture of it on, which I might ask for if she'll do, even if it's just a back shot.
Hmm.
But there is pictures of it on the sofa.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, Ravelry is important. I feel like it's real. I find it so helpful, and I need to get better also at even just for myself because a lot of times I'll want to go back and use the same yarn. I'm like, I have no idea what needle I used. I should have put that in Ravelry.
That's what I'm really trying to do. And wait, because I found myself so often reknitting hats, for example,
Hmm.
and socks. And because I knit generally the same size socks for me and Alex, it would be, and I have put that in now, to have the weights of what I'm using, the needle size, and how much it takes. I can then use every single scrap
Exactly.
with confidence.
Okay.
I, it's good to use it if you can remember to do so.
Gotta make a little mental note. We'll try and remind each other when we finish a project. Hey, did you put that on Ravelry? Um, okay,
do a
cool. Say that again.
Today I did do a bulk upload of photos and
Good for you,
try.
girl. I gotta do that. Okay, so not only are you the fastest knitter I know, but you're also a super yogi. And I wanted to say thank you because you're like, when you announced that on the summer solstice, you were going to do all those salutations to the sun. I was like, I'm gonna do that. And that was like the first day of this entire summer of me being like consistently getting on my new mat and like doing it. And I feel really grateful to you for like starting that and being the catalyst in my life for going on the path of yoga.
Thank you. It's a wonderful practice, and I think if you can open your heart to it, I
Mm-hmm.
do think it couldn't bring you anything but positive. And that's not to say that everyone needs to do it, but the way I see yoga is very much, it's not just on the mat. It's yoga is life, and if you can take the practices and the teachings, even if it's as simple as the breath work or being kind to yourself, being kind to others, it could only be good.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, how long have you been doing yoga and been teaching and all of this?
I started, it was a really happy accident. I studied in Bournemouth, and I worked at the Bournemouth Aquarium or Oceanarium on the beachfront. And every now and then when I was cycling into work, I would see a couple of people sort of raising their arms and folding forward on the beach. And even now I'm quite happy to go up and talk to people. I was just like, just really, I'm curious, what are you doing? And I've never heard of yoga before, which I think's strange, you know. It was 20 and then they were like, yeah, we do it, blah blah blah. So I went and joined, and not necessarily practicing every day since, or every week since, but on and off sort of about a decade now. And I've been teaching for 2.5 years, so not all that long, but
That's
2.5, maybe it's 3 years. I say that it's 3 years. I went to India 4 years ago to learn.
Wow, I did not know you went to India or that you worked in an aquarium. These are all things that I would love to talk with you more in depth about. Very interesting. Okay, cool. Okay, well, back to knitting. Do you think that yoga and knitting have some kind of relationship? Yes. Yes. Okay, so maybe you could talk about that because I think that's cool.
Like, I think it is with everything, but if you're from both ways, so mentally, the way you approach yarn and yarn choices can sit very much in line with your ethical choices that come up in yoga. So, you know, the difference between, and I'm not to say it's wrong, like I can't judge anyone on anything, but the difference between buying a superwash yarn from a commercial brand or buying a non-superwash yarn from someone that's saving, you know, rare breed sheep, it's and paying someone to mill it properly, it's very different. And it's not to say either's completely right or completely wrong, that's your choice to make. But just like you do in yoga, you think about the way you're living your life, the way you're knitting. I think you can apply that to everything. And then when it comes to just the movements, if you're more conscious about how you're holding your body, if you're sat knitting like this, you're going to have a really different experience to if you're knitting with a certain structure. And then again, by practicing on a mat, you're strengthening your body, you're learning to breathe. If you're breathing softer while you're knitting, the chances are you're going to have a much nicer time than if you're doing shallow short breaths, or even just short breaths. It doesn't matter if they're still slow, you're just doing and the breath sitting here, if it's sitting all the way in your belly, you're going to be much more at peace. And I think it does tie in very, very nicely.
Absolutely. And I know that you have a video even that you have like a little like yoga for knitters or for crocheters. I keep saying knitters because knitters, crocheters, crafters, weavers. In Spanish, it's one word, which I think is really nice because it envelops everything. You can just say tejedores, and that's like knitters, crocheters, kind of.
Like fiber artists. Is it?
Fiber artist. Thank you. Yes, that's good. So
Yeah.
you have a video of that is yoga for fiber artists and for people who are, and I think it's really helpful.
It's definitely not exhausted, and I would love to do more videos, but time is a thing. But I would really like to put up some more, and some more full body ones, some just breath, even some guided. I feel like guided meditations while you knit might be a really nice experience.
Oh,
I
yeah.
might do that. So that's something that is fizzling away in the background that I haven't quite, until the building work stops.
I really can hear it, and I don't think that I've ever noticed it in your videos, so I don't know. But
That, I do tend to have all windows shut, and little Audrey uses the window to get in and out, so it doesn't happen for long when it happens.
yeah.
But I do try to minimize it, but it is very loud.
Scotland is
100 meters away.
yeah.
Hopefully.
Okay, so talking about sound and vibrations, what about music? I feel like I connected with you in the beginning because of your music taste, because you were putting stories with music that I hadn't listened to in years, and it just like brought back a lot of memories. And so, how does your music interest influence your knitting? Is there a relation there?
Do you know because you did send me the questions, and what I did is, because I know that my brain, depending on my mood or anything, will answer something completely differently. I looked at it the once and I was like, oh no, it doesn't really play a part. And then I put this on this morning, and this is coming out of my head. So this one was a colorway that I dyed that you won't see too clearly on here.
Yeah.
But this was inspired by music that I happened to be wearing. And then I happened to be knitting, but I think I'm sat on it. Yeah. So I happened to be knitting something again. So this was inspired by a band called the RX Bandits,
Ooh,
which,
hey, yeah.
so if you remember them, I'm lucky enough to have had such a great music scene growing up that we had more than a dozen small music venues locally. I'm talking that you could go and pay £3 for
Mm-hmm.
as a 16, 15, 14-year-old and see a live band or a set of live bands every week without fail.
Yep.
So and I saw RX Bandits when I was that age
Mhm.
in a tiny theatre. I saw them play in a boxing ring in Watford.
Wow.
Like, so they hold a dear memory to me, and their latest album has completely been overlooked, and I think it's one of the greatest albums of the last decade.
All
If
right. I'm gonna look into that. The new album. Very cool. Okay, so it does like it's inspiration and yeah, definitely can tie in there.
quite a lot, like more so than you think,
Yeah.
I thought, but it definitely does have a small impact, and even I feel like it influences project choices sometimes.
Mhm.
I know that if I'm on a car journey and we're going to see a particular band, I might
Ins-
be moving a bit quicker. So I would probably want to be taking a stockinette hat or something I can just knit in the round. Whereas if we're going up to Scotland, say, and we're likely to be spending the driving home listening to classic FM, I know that I could probably take a cable project or
Mhm.
something that requires a little bit more attention. And so it does, whether it felt like conscious or not, you've kind of brought it back to my attention that does play a big part of it even now. It's
Yeah.
quite cool.
Very cool, very cool. And also I think it's really interesting to note that you have been dyeing yarn. And so you've been making different colorways. I love your Audrey colorway. I think that's one of my favorites. And so that's really cool. That's a really fun thing. I think that when it comes to our fiber art and everything, we're such like multifaceted people that like you really are pulling inspiration from all aspects of your life and yeah.
I think it's kind of important to. It is important to, and I think as a person, me, and I'm sure many people, but once I learn something, and then I learn that there's more to learn,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, I really just want to chase that and learn,
Yeah.
because it perpetuates itself quite a lot, especially the fiber arts.
Wow. Very nice. Okay. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about your channel because that's how I found you with your YouTube channel and how consistent you've been for so long. So first of all, how was that started? Like, how did you get inspired to start making videos? And maybe you could talk. I think they have a history with photography, no, or something. You definitely have an aesthetic when you film and you record, so I think that plays a really nice part in your videos being so like accessible and interesting. So,
You're so sweet. um, so I studied visual communication, which
yeah.
kind of like playing into music. I really wanted to be a band brander, if that would make sense. I wanted to be able to design album art, take their photos, design their t-shirts, but life happens and the course didn't really cover that criteria, which is fine. You live and you learn. But the reason I started, I started knitting through my own things that I needed to work through. And I watched a couple of podcasts and I was like, this is really cool. I feel connected.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that people were connecting and sharing and going from being so out there, able to go to a show every other night in London if I wanted to, cycle up to a friend if I needed to,
Mm-hmm.
like the being at home alone, I felt like it was a wonderful community and I wanted to be a part of it. So on a whim, I recorded. It's it's very different to how it is now, but it's still very much the same me, the same. And I'd finished my first project, I think, maybe two, and I decided to put it up there and see what happened, and it's brought nothing but good things.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
the sense of community I felt, and the 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 group that we have. You know, if you end up seeing a video and hearing that the Discord group we have is such a special place filled with such a kind-hearted souls that I really couldn't imagine life without it. So I have to be consistent. I'd be
Yeah,
really upset.
okay. All
Like
right.
it's wonderful.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the group of people that are in the knitting community are all really wonderful people. And I don't know if it's just my vision of it, but I feel like there's so many wonderful people in the community. And so it's nice to be a part of that. And it does inspire you to like want to start making videos and want to start sharing because you're like, yeah, I want to say things too. And yeah.
It's very, we're lucky. It's a very cool and accessible for everyone. Whereas being interested in music, if you're interested in a different type of music, sometimes it's hard to communicate with someone. It shouldn't be, but sometimes it is. Whereas knitting or crocheting or fiber arts, even if you're a knitter that's never crocheted, you can communicate wholly with a crocheter.
Exactly.
Not that we're different people.
No, and I think that most of us are knitters and crocheters. I mean, I've been doing a lot of crochet this past year as well, and I really like crochet. So,
I must say, I crocheted first. I did have crocheting, and I was a English knitter. I threw with
okay.
my
Yeah, that's how I
when
started too.
I switched, and I was like, oh, this makes sense.
Yeah.
But it really hurt my wrist. So because I made like 4 garments in the space of 2 weeks, which so I knitting made sense for my body.
Yeah, I was telling you that when I was crocheting a lot, I was having some wrist problems. So I think that I was doing it incorrectly. I need to work on my technique or something, but yeah, you got to be careful.
Found that I won't talk to you, but I was really going quick and hard, and
Hmm.
I touched my teeth.
Oh,
I
interesting.
never did it when I knit ever, but when I crocheting, I did. So that's a habit I had to practice to lose because I just noticed, even though I'm like conscious of it, it would just come back. And I'm like,
Yeah,
shouldn't be.
soft. You need the soft face. Soft face. Relaxed. Bring in the yoga. Bring in the yoga and just relax face. Um, okay, cool. So, what about your designing? I also think that's a really interesting, exciting aspect of what you're doing now. You've released how many patterns now? A few? Two? Your Philly
I've
socks? your Kalagaldana, which I always say Gata Katana, which which is a Spanish artist. There's my dog. He's getting comfy. Um, so yeah. Um, so yeah, so tell me about the design process and what made you start designing?
Um, a few things. It wasn't something I desired to do. It wasn't like I learnt to knit with the intention of creating items to then send out into the world. The socks, I just had this idea. I've got a bit of a pass in reproduction and dressing vintage, and I had a pair of socks that I still had to this day that got this cute little frill, and I was like, I can knit socks. I could do this.
Yeah.
And then, as I love mohair, so I just put the two and two together, and I was like, oh, so that was a really happy accident. And then we went on holiday a year into knitting, and I was like, well, I get to wear my knits all through autumn and winter and early spring, but I don't really have anything I can wear in summer. And there's a lot more of that happening. And even at the time there must have been, but I wasn't aware. So I decided to take a look at what I was seeing around me. The tiles and fencing were the main inspiration behind that top.
Yeah.
Knitted something that I could wear on my holiday, and that was how that happened. Was already knitting one, which you can see, and it's the technique's the same, but the shaping and the design very much evolved on that trip.
Very nice.
It was a very happy accident.
Very, very nice. I think that it's a really cool path that you're going on, and I think your designs are beautiful. So I'm excited to see more and more and all of that. And what has been the most challenging aspect of the design process or writing up your own designs? How is that? That
I think I as a person that has just figured out they love problem solving. It's great. It's really exciting and quite fun. But being quite isolated, it's quite hard to communicate with others unless I use my group, which has been amazing.
Mhm.
But it's a bit of sizing's one thing, and being completely a novice, figuring that out is a challenge. I mean, I personally, and I'm sure most people do, I wanted to make sure that it was inclusive, but also true.
Mm-hmm.
That took quite some work. I mean, it took me a year to get it to the stage where I was happy to send it out into the world, which is totally fine. And then even for me, I know that when I'm working from a pattern, sometimes I will write it out in a very different way to how it's written in shorthand. And when I started to do it, I realized that I was typing it up like that, which would not have been useful to anyone. So having to sort of bring myself back to more traditional phrasing and words, it's kind of interesting. Which, again, now is just a reflection, is something that I've really struggled with.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think we got to a point where it's very clear, and I'm happy with it.
Very cool. Very cool. I think you're doing good work with that. And I don't know if you kind of answered this, but what do you think has been like the most surprising aspect of design or creating your own patterns, or there's something that you didn't expect, or I don't know.
Other people to want to make them.
Oh, yeah, right? Like I can't even imagine seeing like something that you've created, someone else like wearing it and making it. That's amazing.
It is amazing, and the few items that I've made for myself recently that could potentially, and I'm going to try my best to turn into patterns, the response to them and knowing that people want, it's unfathomable to me, but it's wonderful. And it's kind of made me feel less isolated in my style choices, which I didn't think were style choices. They were just practical, or, using up my mohair has
Mm-hmm.
become, it's cool. It's very cool.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay, and maybe this question also might have been answered, but how would you define success?
I don't know that I could.
Yeah,
It's
I don't know. I could either. Silly question.
no, it's not a silly question. It's just I'm not very good at defining things anyway.
Hmm.
I go around the subject but yeah, I think it just the fact that anyone would want to share my journey with me was a success. So
Yeah.
it's all depending on what it's in relation to.
I think I saw you posted something yesterday, and I don't remember the numbers, but you said like the amount of people that watched my summer top video could fill I don't know, someplace in.
I was like this morning I woke up and it was that quantity and a half again. I was like, where are you all coming from? But hi, summer
Yeah.
top.
Yeah, and I think it's a really great video. I watched it and I was super inspired. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I could do this and I could do this." And I got really excited about it. So I think because you're
Oh,
such a prolifically fast knitter and you're just like creating all these things, you do it for us because a lot of us are a lot slower and maybe it'll take us like 4 months to make a summer top. So it's nice to like see them all and be like, okay, I think that this style would work for me or this or this. So good
I
job.
think in my future coming is a now I've got more of an understanding. It's still not very clear of my past and my present.
Hmm.
I would like to do a video explaining more because a lot of people say that I'm a very fast knitter,
Yeah.
and sometimes it makes me feel funny because it's sometimes because I can't get out of bed and all I've done for 2 weeks is sit in bed and knit, and I'm like, I've spent 12 hours a day knitting for 3 of those days, so like,
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's so true. And I apologize for saying it a
no,
million times.
no. But I do knit quite quickly, as the snail racing suggests,
Hmm.
and ribbing, ribbing and stockinette's the same speed for me. So I don't know. That's quite cool to think and
Yeah.
learn. So maybe do that on yourself and see.
Race a snail.
But
Just race a
yeah, like I think I am generally quite a fast knitter, and I find it very easy to get into a rhythm with something. Like I couldn't help but pick this up, and I am actually decreasing while I'm talking to you.
Oh, I'm
So,
doing ribbing, and that's like kind of, I'm having to stop every once in a while because it's hard. Yeah.
so
You got a lot of
quick,
practice, a lot of hours under the belts.
yeah, I've put some time in, and
Mm.
I'm grateful for it. From such a strange negative thing, it has been turned into the most positive thing that's happened
Yeah.
in quite, maybe ever. I don't know. That might be overselling it, but I do. It's been awesome, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Mm. That's so beautiful. Okay, so I think you answered this question before, but what style of knitting do you do? You said before you were a thrower, and so now, and you're left-handed, are you not? Yeah.
Yeah. So I when I picked up, I went to eat John Lewis, which was fancy to me. Oh, Audrey. Hey.
My dog does the same. He like knocks on the door. He's like, "Hi, can I come in? I feel like your conversation is interesting."
She got caught in a rain shower.
Oh,
Yeah, so I crocheted before, and then when I went into John Lewis, which was really fancy to me, it's like a big department store here. I picked up a set of bamboo needles because even at the time I thought I liked bamboo crochet hooks. So and I tried sticks and throwing, and I was just all over the shop. I was like Bambi on ice. But then I saw some videos. I was like, how to knit with ease, and then I started realizing different phrases, and I was like, this continental thing seems cool. It looks like I get to hold my hand like my little crochet claw,
yeah.
and the rest is basically history. And then I saw the whole circular needles, and I was like, oh, this is even nicer on my wrists.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's all about being ergonomic and like finding what works for.
Yeah, for your body, and
Yeah.
And I still, to this day, I'm like, I wish that yarn shops could host more sort of trials, like a tasting session.
Oh,
So you can just play with chalgu and hire and sticks and bamboo and,
I
you
think
know.
I've seen that at like knitting festivals where there's like different yarn and different, like a taste testing. I feel like I've seen that. Maybe I was dreaming, but that sounds like a good idea.
Like,
Fiber festival
because I think it's so important to try and not get stuck in one way until you have tried a few. You don't have to, obviously. I do think it's because it potentially brings 10 times more comfort or more joy.
Mm-hmm.
Both.
Yeah. That's what we need. More joy. So, this next question, I feel like some of the questions when I wrote them, I was imagining what you might answer. So, this one I think I know the answer, but what's your favorite fiber? I think I know. But maybe you'll surprise me and be like, Lopi. I don't know. I love Lopi.
I love Lopi too. I do think I've grown really attached to mohair, and I think if anyone that's been with me for my little journey will see me grow quite attached to such things. And I wear it a lot. But I'm also really drawn to more rustic wool. I love Blueface Leicester.
Oh,
And
yeah. That's a new
you know,
discovery for me. Mm-hmm.
as far as and high twist Blueface Leicester, I think is awesome too.
Yeah.
But I do like a rusticy yarn. I am drawn to that. But mohair is just incredibly special. And if you are inspired to learn a bit, there's quite a good page on Whistlebear on their website
Mm-hmm.
talking about how it can't, because it's so slick, the bacteria can't stick to it. So if you use it for socks, your socks will never smell. Which, I mean, I don't anyway, but for walking boots or it's quite a cool, like,
Yeah, and I've heard that mohair is really great for heels and toes because it is so like strong. So if you use it as like an extra thread, you're gonna have. I always forget to do that. Actually, I'm knitting socks right now, and I forgot to do that. But I always think to myself, gotta do that because I hate when you rub through the toes or whatever. So wool and different fibers have so many interesting properties, which I think is why people use them and have chosen them for so many years. Very cool. What about your favorite knitting technique? Like I love German short rows and Icelandic bind off. Do you have any favorites?
I do love the Icelandic bind off.
Hmm.
I love German short rows too, to be honest.
I love them. I don't know what it is.
I don't know. I don't know that I've got a technique that I particularly love. I think I'm an advocate of the pearl stitch, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I love purl too. If you do it Portuguese, it's amazing.
Yeah, if you're doing 4 rounds in Portuguese, definitely. But for me, continental, I think I love the pearl. Just I quite enjoy brioche too, actually, and I would quite like to learn more intricate designs and how to shape things. Like there's quite a lot of sort of foliage things being released at the moment. I'm drawn to that.
There's a lot you can do with brioche, I think.
It's squishy.
It is so squishy and such a nice fabric. Okay, so talking about foliage in knitting and everything, is there any plant that might come to mind? You know, I love plants. So do you have like a favorite plant or like one you've been thinking about a lot or one?
I love Heather, which is why it's my pseudonym.
Yes. Yeah.
Even emails every day, I get a response saying, "Hey Heather," and I'm like, it does say it's from Katt. But I'll take Heather.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'd say lavender because I spend a lot of time with my lavender, at least 5 minutes a day, watching the bumblebees come forwards, and I keep dyeing and knitting with lavender.
It's true.
It smells
It's
nice.
true. The actual
It's
plant of lavender is so beautiful. I love the color green that it is, you know? It's such It's like a sage green kind of. It's really beautiful.
Sagey, jady. Actually, the sage bush next to my lavender, both of them are just the
Oh,
sage when we got it was like this, and the lavender, and now I don't know if they're working together nicely or competing, but they are both huge, and it's
wow.
wonderful.
Very nice. Very nice. You could make some sage honey. Just put some sage and some honey, and that's really nice to make yourself some tea in the winter when your throat's scratchy.
That's a good idea. I love the flavor of sage. I burn it quite a lot, whether it's dried first or not.
Mm-hmm.
Just dried. I love it.
Very nice. And what's your favorite tea or infusion these days? What are you drinking today?
Right now, I am drinking lavender chamomile balm that
Oh,
I'm talking
nice.
about all the time in Scotland, and it smells unbelievably just like honey. It has a chamomile undertone, but it smells like honey. It's amazing.
Very.
Nearly done.
All right. And just one last question. I don't want to take up all your Friday. So, can you tell me any dream project on the horizon? Anything knitting or whatever? I mean, maybe you have a super knitting project. Maybe that badger sweater I think will be really cool.
I was really hoping in April I was gonna go and learn to shear mohair goat,
Mm,
which
wow.
obviously didn't happen. But
Okay.
my big dream would be to go and shear, spin, wear, knit. So knit,
Is
wear,
in
have it
mohair.
the whole process, and it wouldn't necessarily have to be just mohair, and I'd be happy to. But that is the dream: is to one day be able to take a fiber from a sheep that I can say thank you,
Mm-hmm.
work with it to produce it as a yarn, and then probably not dye it because I feel like that would be just too special, and then knit it and be able to wear it, and maybe even go back and have a little photograph with the said sheep.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Like full circle.
It would be awesome.
Very,
That's the
very nice. Love that dream. I hope that in April 2021 we can talk again and you can tell us about your experience doing this activity, these activities, this process. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so it has been so nice to talk with you. This has been really beautiful. Can you tell us where people can find you, like website, social media, or whatever?
I totally always forget to talk about this sort of thing. um, Heather and Hops on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
Heather at Heather.hops on Instagram are probably the two best ways to maybe
Perfect.
either watch me or get in touch.
Yeah. I'll put the information down below so that people can hop on over to Heather and Hops.
Heather and
Um,
Hops.
okay, thank you so much. And I hope that this has been fun for you, and I hope that we could do it again in the future. And yeah, I hope that you have a great knitting weekend and everything, and we'll talk soon. We'll talk on Discord on Monday nights, hopefully.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wonder if other people will get it from it, but I feel like it's been a really interesting moment to reflect.
Hmm.
So thank you for facilitating that. I've learned about myself through talking to you.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of times when you just, these questions maybe you don't think about, or yeah, I think it helps when someone asks you questions.
Amazing.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, bye.